Director. Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting to order, please. First item is a reminder of disclosure of pecuniary interest, the general nature thereof. And I will note there are none. I'd like to make some remarks. This is a public meeting as per subsection 1715D, the Planning Act, to afford any person an opportunity to be heard respecting the Municipality of Central Elgin Official Plan 5-year update. The effect of the 5-year official plan update is to ensure that the land use planning policies are current, reflect updated provincial policy and legislation, and reflect changing community needs for the next 25 years. The update applies to all lands within the municipality. Does any member, I've already asked that. Deputy Clerk, what method of notice and when was the notice given to the public for this meeting?
Mr. Chair, as per requirements of the Planning Act, notice of the public meeting for the official plan 5-year update was given to applicable agencies, First Nations and developers via email and/or regular post on June the 28th, 2022. Notice was advertised in the weekly CE Buzz advertisements, which includes the St. Thomas Times Journal, the Elgin County Market, and the Elmer Express since June 28th, 2022. Notice has been displayed on the municipal website under the Let's Talk Central Elgin project page entitled Official Plan Review under News and Promotions since June 28th, 2022. Notice has also been promoted weekly through the municipal social media, being Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter since June 30th, 2022.
Thank you for that. At this time, I'd like to introduce Mr. Kevin McClure, a planner, to present the official plan. Kevin, welcome. Floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I'll just share my screen here. And as has been provided, this is a public meeting to go over the proposed changes for the Municipality of Central Elgin official plan, specifically the 5-year review and update of the official plan. So as part of the official plan update, as has been provided by Deputy Mayor Marks, an official plan is central land use planning document that guides the growth and development of the municipality while protecting human health, built assets, and natural heritage resources across the municipality. It articulates the council's commitment to future growth and investment in the community while ensuring that the public landowners are aware of the municipality's general land use planning policies. In general, it will help decide where roads, water mains, sewers, garbage dumps, parks, and other built services will be built, and ensure that those public services are built in a coordinated manner. And the reason for the, the update process is for a number of reasons. One being the official plan was first approved and adopted back in February of 2013. Obviously, a lot has changed since that time. One being that the county of Elgin has now created or has its own planning function now. Before it was with the province. And since the county of Elgin official plan was approved on October 9th, 2013, there is that, two-tiered structure, municipal structure for approvals within the Central Elgin, planning area. And that needs to be reflected as the OP policies with the county of Elgin official plan. The Central Elgin official plan's policies need to conform to those policies as well, including provincial policy. Several provincial legislative and policy updates have occurred since the approval back in 2013 that need to be reflected through this. And the provincial legislation requires that municipalities review and update their official plans within every 5 years, or as what we're proposing through this, update process is a repeal and replace of the Central Elgin official plan, in which if the municipality were to repeal and replace, that review period would be extended to 10 years. So just give a bit of a project timeline and overview. In the spring, summer of 2021, the municipality initiated the project launch and public open house for the official plan update. In the fall of 2021, there were 3 stakeholder sessions on several official plan themes. There was an online survey, project and engagement website that was launched to initiate and solicit feedback from the public and stakeholders. Through winter and spring of 2022, another 3 stakeholder sessions were held. Public open house was held. Staff met with and started the First Nations consultation, and specifically had a consultation meeting, an engagement meeting with the Chippewas of the Thames of First Nations. Staff also met with the St. Thomas Housing Service Manager, which is responsible for the County of Elgin, but includes the Municipality of Central Elgin, and had an online survey. And based on all the feedback and input that we received through the process, including direct submissions to staff through the project engagement website, the staff provided in a draft official plan policies and residential land supply reports to council in March 28th, 2022, and circulated to the county for comment. The presentation today, as part of the statutory public meeting, is presenting those draft policies, or getting the general nature thereof of the draft policy updates that have been or were presented in March 28th, 2022, and have been on the Let's Talk Central Elgin website since that time. So the structure of the meeting and the structure of the reports that were presented to council were, I guess, twofold. One being the policy revisions, and the other being the residential land supply and the designation changes that were proposed. Again, the residential land supply and designations, a lot of that input of the housing supply in that was completed by Dylan, who is Dylan Consulting, who was assisting on the project. So moving on to the policy revisions, there were key policy theme areas that were, I guess, as part of the policy audit, and the numerous changes that were through provincial policy and legislation. These were the ones that were identified as key areas for needing updates through the official plan process. One being planning for growth, requirements for rural and agricultural policy, housing affordability, environment and climate change, Indigenous consultation and reconciliation, and then community and urban design. So, as I said, I'll be going through just some of those key updates that were provided as part of that review and update process. And again, many of these changes were related to the 9 legislative and policy updates that have occurred since the approval of the original official plan, and the county's official plan, and their role now as approval authority for official plan amendments and land division within the municipality. So I guess moving on to the First Nations Indigenous inclusion, there's been now, through the provincial policy statement, recognition and affirmation of existing Aboriginal and treaty rights in Section 35 of the Constitution Act. And that was provided as an update as part of the PPS 2020. Provision that planning authorities shall engage with Indigenous communities and coordinate on land use planning matters. So policies, not only just with respect to the acknowledgement and engagement in the introductory paragraph of the sections of the OP, there's quite a bit more engagement in policy direction to speak to First Nations, Indigenous communities with respect to land use planning applications for when you're dealing with archaeological or cultural master plans, those sorts of things. So there's definitely more updates to that. And again, the updates reflect the need to build that constructive cooperative relationships through that meaningful engagement with Indigenous communities, and to facilitate that knowledge sharing. There have been some updates with accessibility. So there's more language now for improving accessibility for persons with disabilities and older persons by addressing land use barriers, which restrict their full participation in society, in sustaining healthy, livable, and safe communities. And policies that provide the public and private realm should be planned to be barrier-free and universally accessible to all people. This is kind of throughout the plan. There's a specific accessibility section within the official plan, but there's the general language and the policy direction within the official plan has been updated and enhanced to deal with the barrier-free and universal accessibility in all of land use planning applications. A kind of a minor change, more structural than anything else, is the removal, the removal or change of terms from the rural development areas to hamlets. The rural development areas in the official plan was kind of created to policy challenges given the fact that they were in the agricultural section of the official plan. They've now been moved into where the more urban structure section is. It doesn't necessarily mean that these are areas are slated for growth, but it allows and it recognizes that these are existing rural pockets of development and that they're part of the urban component. Again, it goes back to ensuring that when we're looking at applications from a provincial policy perspective and just general policy perspective, that they're looked at and viewed as an urban component as opposed to rural. So that's a slight change, but has some, some pretty big implications when you're dealing with land use planning approvals, and it'll help assist and streamline those processes. So the agricultural section, which was substantially rewritten to better reflect the provincial policy and the province's guidelines on permitted use in Ontario prime agricultural areas. So these changes include recognition of all types and sizes and intensities of agricultural uses in these areas, as well as expanded definition for agricultural use to include such uses as agriculture, agroforestry, maple syrup production, etc. There's guidance for the types and limits of agricultural related uses. So that's, there to provide and assist in the integration of these uses within the agricultural areas. Policies have also been expanded to include on-farm diversified uses that are secondary to the principal agricultural use, and revised policies also ensure that new residential, commercial, industrial uses are directed to settlement areas. So again, this is kind of following up on the language of the provincial policy statement, and also reflecting the provincial guidelines now that are out there from OMAFRA that really speak to some of those types of uses. And again, wanting to and recognizing the importance of the agricultural community within Central Elgin and ensuring that we're being consistent with how the agricultural community views their land uses within the municipality, so that they're able to thrive as an important sector of the municipal economy. Moving forward on to affordable housing, policies have been expanded to identify and address the full range of housing needs, from those that are homeless to those that are looking to enter home ownership market. Again, there's changes as part of the 2020 PPS that really speaks to the range and mix of housing. And then affordable housing, when you're dealing from a land use planning perspective, and then when you're dealing and speaking to, say, the housing providers, like the St. Thomas housing service manager, there is this need for an understanding that the housing continuum, where there's homelessness and individuals that need housing supports as part of that, that housing continuum, where you get provincial funding or federal funding to allow for that, but all the way up to the market home ownership section of housing needs within the municipality. And that goes into market ownership and market rent as well. So this new policy showing council's commitment to encouraging a diversity of dwelling types and development applications, provision now of affordable housing target of 20% for new developments. Again, this was to bring on 445 affordable units over the 25-year planning horizon. And again, that there's now stronger policy direction and language within the official plan to allow for that coordination with the housing and homelessness plans prepared by the City of St. Thomas service manager. New change as part of the 2020 PPS is, heightened interest in climate change and air quality. So one of the, I guess, the big changes and inclusions of the OP update was the recognition that Council of Municipality of Central Elgin passed a resolution that declared a climate emergency on October 20th, 2019. So that it's recognition that, planning decisions need to take that into consideration when we're making those land use planning decisions. Policies that provide for the protection and sustainability of the natural environment and resources, direction on air quality and climate change have been greatly increased. To that, there's, in other parts of the official plan, we're providing for, promotion of that compact mixed use developments that are transit supportive, pedestrian friendly, and minimize contribution to air pollution through reduced reliance on private automobiles. So while not specifically within the climate change and air quality section of the plan, there's numerous policies that look to advance those objectives and goals of council. Encourage active transportation opportunities and connectivity through structure of nodes and corridors that promote walking, cycling, and trail systems. Again, not only leading to healthy communities by less reliance on the car, but the offshoot being that they're helping contribute to climate goals and air quality. And then again, promoting sustainable design and construction standards as part of that, not only land use planning applications for larger subdivisions, but on individual projects. Then we're dealing with community and urban design. The policies have been expanded to go just beyond the visual and aesthetic character of individual buildings, but recognize the importance of design as an important component of municipal planning. And that is, encouraging the emphasis on design, creating attractive, safe, sustainable, and socially active places that contribute to people's health, happiness, well-being, and sense of belonging. And new policies to encourage high quality urban design in the review of all private and public development applications. This is also promoting high quality of architecture and site design that complements and enhances the surrounding neighborhood character and context. So there's quite a bit of new policy direction in that. Ultimately, a lot of the details of this is going to be relied on by specific urban design guidelines that would need to help articulate the specific goals and objectives that would come forward with that. But the community and urban design component has been increased substantively. And again, when you look at the other components, when you're dealing with residential designations and the like, it does speak to trying to create those mixed use, an active transportation neighborhoods in order to also achieve these policy goals. And that builds into the complete and healthy communities component as well. That's been updated. Again, it goes back to complete communities meeting the daily needs of people throughout their lifetime, providing a convenient access to an appropriate mix of jobs, local services, a full range of housing options, and access to community infrastructure like affordable housing, schools, recreation, open space areas, designed to promote transit supportive infrastructure and be safe and walkable communities. Again, we know that there isn't a transit network currently within the municipality, but the goal is to promote those types of densities and again, the network patterns that should in the future, that there be enough demand for that we're thinking about that, because again, this is going into that 25 year horizon. But also a complete community. We hear a lot about the whole mentality of the cradle to grave, you wanting to live in the same neighborhood and that's what we need to look at through this, and that's the reason why we're trying to create these complete and healthy communities, so that you have those opportunities through those different mixes of housing types and options within a community to make those relationships and stay in the same place. So then there's new policies that acknowledge council's commitment to the importance of existing tree cover throughout the municipality. Again, an aspect to advancing the climate change goals as well, and air quality, but also recognizing that healthy communities have that good tree cover and the natural heritage features within them. And then again, encouragement of transit supportive and cost effective development patterns and standards that minimize land consumption, servicing costs, and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So the natural heritage section, most of the natural heritage from provincial policy in that there haven't been substantive changes since the 2013 official plan. However, they have, based on the new direction on climate change and other municipal objectives, and what we heard throughout the public process, some policies have been amended to provide that greater clarity and consistency with the language in the PPS. Revised policies clearly state the municipality's preferred approach is to avoid development in or near natural heritage features where feasible. Again, going back to maintaining that tree canopy, again, trying to build on the protection and the other climate and environmental goals that have been provided through this process. And then again, where there's existing intervening developments between proposed land use and the designated natural heritage features, the municipality would consider the scale and scope of the proposal, proximity to the feature, and determining the level of use to study required to support the policies of the plan. Again, this is one of those, I guess, unintended consequences of some of the provincial direction where within 120 meters of a natural heritage feature, you're required to undertake environmental studies and the like to demonstrate that there's no negative impacts. However, where I guess this new policy direction would come into play is mainly within urban areas where, say, you have an existing, pocket of development, and the new development would be further away from that natural heritage feature, but you would still be within that 120 meters. Ultimately, this gives a level of flexibility to kind of scope what would be required, since that heritage feature is already impacted. Natural hazards have been slightly revised as well. The bluff hazard limit has been now replaced by the shoreline hazard limit. Again, this is mainly along Lake Erie. You see a lot of that along the Dexter line. The realignment was, and portions of Port Stanley to the very east of it. There's policies relating to the replacement or relocation of existing structures. Has been amended to ensure that the new location of any structure is as far away from the hazard limit as possible, to ensure the design and construction of the structure allows for easy removal should erosion hazard compromise the site in the future. Again, it goes back to some of those first principles with the provincial policy statement, and when dealing with the conservation authorities, is that the preferred approach is to have development outside of a hazard, so you're minimizing the risk to human health and safety and property loss. And then that there's new policies that acknowledge that while existing municipal infrastructure is located within the shoreline erosion hazard limit, the municipality is under no obligation to address the loss of public infrastructure to private lands created by natural hazard along Lake Erie shoreline. It's, that's the process essentially that was gone with like old Dexter versus new Dexter line, is that they going through the process for spending the money for the infrastructure there versus having it outside. This policy direction allows the municipality to consider that in the future. This has been, I guess, development permit system has been a policy and something that a tool that has been available to municipalities for a number of years now, but we've put forward this as more of a placeholder and policy language to allow the municipality to move forward with the development permit system should it wish to in the future. But ultimately, it's a planning tool that's intended to streamline and expedite the approvals process by combining essentially zoning bylaws, bylaw amendments, minor variants, and site plan approvals into one process. Ultimately, it allows for some flexibility within the in certain areas, and again, streamlines the process to a point where approvals need to occur within 45 days. And depending on how it's used, it can be beneficial to advance certain goals by the municipality. And then the applications approvals process, one of the changes that was recently introduced through Bill 109 of this year, essentially has introduced changes to the approvals process for zoning bylaw amendments and site plan applications, that as of January 1st, 2023, if certain applications or those applications aren't approved by the municipality within the legislative timeframes, then there's a graduated refund of fee that's required, that the municipality is required to give back to applicants. So new policies have been put forward in the official plan to acknowledge that the municipality, once an application is submitted for approval and consideration, that they will meet the legislative timeframes for approval, and that ultimately that it could impact decision making moving forward, because there may be more applications that are required to go forward with a recommendation for refusal, given the fact that we haven't had an opportunity to go through and have that discussion with the applicant. So it's more of one of these things that I think staff will be bringing forward through the complete application pre-consultation meeting process, that ultimately, if there's certain things that we need to discuss, that those things, and I guess work out, that those should happen before an application is brought forward to the municipality, because once it's submitted, the municipality will and staff will be advancing it so that we're not looking at returning fees for application processing. This then, and I would just one thing to note as well, there is a slight revised change that I've included just as a note. It refers back to the presentation that was brought forward by the Economic Development, the County of Elgin's Economic Development Department. They've updated their strategic plan or their strategy, economic development strategy. The policy section has been slightly tweaked just to put in their key goals as part of that new strategy. Everything else is fundamentally the same, but we just wanted to ensure that moving forward that the goals aligned with their new strategy. This now brings us to the residential land supply and designations portion of the official plan. So the key updates that were brought forward as part of that the March 28th council meeting was the redesignation of golf courses, cemeteries, and municipal parks within the settlement areas from residential to community facility. And that as per the recommendations of the Dillon report and study, that the additional residential lands be added to the settlement area of Union. Again, using the rationalization approach through that report and study, was that it kind of builds on the key investments that the municipality has made to bring infrastructure up to Union through the Union Class EA, and justifying the kind of expansion and build out of that on full services. Just to note as well, as part of, and since the public meeting has gone out, we have reached out to, or staff has reached out to the different golf courses, cemeteries. The specific cemeteries that in the South Park Cemetery and the Union Cemetery, I guess we're bringing it to their board. We have not heard back from them of whether or not they have any concerns. We have met today with the Kettle Creek golf course landowners and their agents. I'm sure that they'll be presenting or commenting today on that, but just to acknowledge that we have met with them, and the St. Thomas Golf and Country Club has also reached out to us, and we've committed to meeting with them in the coming weeks to discuss the land use designations on their property. But as of this meeting right now, we're presenting the findings and recommendations as per the report in the March 28th meeting. So major changes, as you can see in Schedule B for Belmont on the screen, are the existing kind of park areas within the as kind of shown in green here. They've now been converted to community facility as their municipal parks, and there's no real intention for them to be converted to residential. So to accurately reflect their long-term use, they've been changed from residential to community facility. Again, moving on to Schedule C and D. So C being the community of Lyndhurst, recognizing again, and kind of where my cursor is up on the screen, the existing kind of park. There's a roadway that's owned by the municipality, the access point to the park lands, a park and stormwater management facility. Ultimately, those are intended to not revert to residential in the future. So they've been converted to community facility. Similarly with the Lawton Street Park in Eastwood. Here on Schedule E for the Norman Lindale area, we have this is the East, the cemetery, East Park Cemetery here that we've now converted or recommending conversion to community facility. There is I guess a portion of the lands that are not part of the active cemetery currently. But ultimately the rationale being that over time they may need more lands for that, so that's why we've reached out. But that's one of the parcels that's being suggested to be converted. Again, moving down to Union, where we have the St. Thomas Golf and Country Club, some of the existing municipal properties, parks, again along Sparta Line, and then the Union Cemetery as well. Ultimately, this longer kind of portion here is already in an active cemetery. There is a portion down to the south, but the rationale again being that the long-term functionality of it actually being residential when it's being essentially landlocked outside of the settlement area as part of the rationale as to why it should be converted over to community facility. And then in the community of Union, of Port Stanley, the St. Thomas Golf and Country Club, again shown on the screen as being moved over to that community facility. One thing to note too, and that's not shown on the schedules, we've received the updated hazardland mapping from the Kettle Creek Conservation Authority this afternoon. It's more of a technical revision. Schedule, I believe it's G2 of the official plan, has a current flood fringe line. Ultimately, as part of the work that's been conducted by Kettle Creek as part of the Harbor Secondary Plan and some of their updated mapping and exercises, that flood fringe line is going to be revised, but that's more of a technical change. And that brings me to the end of the presentation.
Thank you, Kevin. Well done. I don't know, Officer Deputy Clerk, have there been any written submissions on the proposal?
Mr. Chair, correspondence has been received from the following: St. Thomas Golf and Country Club, Sifton Properties Limited, Port Stanley Village Association, Monteith Brown Planning Consultants, and the County of Alvin. All correspondence has been circulated to members of council and municipal staff.
Thank you. Before opening the meeting to questions from the public, I'd advise the public, if you're listening on your computer, tablet, or smartphone, please click the raise hand icon. If you've called into the meeting using a telephone, please dial *9. The questions will be taken in a sequential order. When given the opportunity to speak, please provide your name and address for the record. Mr. Perrin, do we have any questions, any members? Matt Campbell? Welcome.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. You've got the floor. Go ahead.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. I don't have any questions per se, and thanks to Mr. McClure for the presentation. I'll add that we're representing two landowners, sorry, and I should add that I'm with Zolinka Priamo, Land Use Planning Consultants. We're representing Quincy Developments and North Development Corp on two properties in Central Elgin. And my comments relate to the land needs, particularly with residential uses in the municipality. I don't have any concerns with the report and the findings that was provided. I would just note for council's consideration, we are involved in several intensification projects in Central Elgin, and we were previously advised by staff that there's a little appetite for conversion of other land uses, including institutional and commercial, for residential uses. I would just like to remind council to be open-minded about the current state of the residential land market. If and when these applications come in front of council, we know that there is a very strong demand for residential uses and softening demand for other land uses. If that is something that council deems fit to reflect in the official plan update, wonderful. Although we're not requesting any specific changes at this time. That's all. I just wanted to bring that to council's attention. Happy to answer any follow-up questions that council or Mr. McClure may have on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Does council have any questions? Looks like they're happy, but thank you, Matt. Appreciate it. Do we have any further ones? Okay. Brent Barr.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. My name is Brent Barr. I am the chair and or president of the Port Stanley Village Association. And apparently you asked for the address as well. I'll give you my address, which is 192 Harrison Place in Port Stanley.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. On behalf of the Port Stanley Village Association, and of course, the whole village of Port Stanley, I want to thank each and every one of you for all your efforts on this, both what you've done, but we're also going forward. And I'd like to thank Kevin McClure for your very detailed changes to the policy that you're trying to put forth. I think that was very informative. Obviously, my goal in this tonight is just to really highlight the document that we submitted on July the 5th. We encourage, of course, if anybody who has it to read it in a bit more detail if they want to get more of the entirety of the document that we submitted. We had, as a summary to that document, kind of 8 key points that we wanted to highlight for you right now. I'll do it kind of quickly and then kind of go back to a couple key things in it. First is we wanted to create a vision. The second one was upper and lower tier collaboration. Third, cost management. Fourth, growth and development. Fifth was community character and design. The 6th point was transportation. 7th, affordable and senior housing. And our 8th was around green space. So the first one, which was create a vision, we really want council, and really in the consultation with the Port Stanley residents, create that vision and the future of Port Stanley, but really that informs the official plan and its direction. I think that that big picture idea will really help in what you're trying to do and hopefully reflect very positively back into the village of Port Stanley. When it comes to upper and lower tier collaboration, and I'm sure I'm not the only one that would say this, but boy, sometimes it gets confusing when you're talking about the 2 tiers and how they collaborate and speak. And while you as a group get this very well, a lot of individuals don't. And I think the more that the Central Elgin and the County of Elgin can kind of bring together your efforts to kind of help the general population understand how it comes together, so link them and present them as a collective group, really would be helpful as you move forward. Of course, cost management. As individuals today, we all learned that the kind of inflation in June was over 8%. We get the idea of cost, but it's probably going to get more expensive as time goes on. And so the more we can kind of address those long-term costs and how that's going to impact future development and infrastructure, really good to do it through this document. And I know you're working towards that. Growth and development. Certainly the big thing around that was around making sure that the adjusted population numbers really do reflect the current reality of what you guys are trying to do. I think as a council, you have some really big challenges ahead. And that population, those numbers will make a real big difference. Community character and design, our 5th point. I know that there's been some changes in what you guys had proposed in around the 27th of June when you had that brought forth to council. And we really look forward to the zoning that will fall out of that and really have the things that will be important for our local community as we continue to move forward and try to maintain that look and that feel and that character that Port Stanley is so famous for. When it comes to transportation, the sixth point, really bring Port Stanley and the County of Elgin together with their transportation plan and making sure that both the development and the growth occurs in a way that's going to help the entire community, but also the entire collective whole continue to move forward in a very successful way. I was glad to see that Mr. McClure talked about the active transportation as part of that. Affordable and senior housing. And we understand that St. Thomas is really leading that, but Central Elgin has a really important active role in it. And there's been some fantastic discussions around where that's going. And we really are looking forward that we become active in this process as Central Elgin, because both affordable, but also senior housing is going to be a really critical thing as we move forward. And the last point, and something that is important for Port Stanley as a whole, is the idea of green space and the approach to sustainability. Mr. McClure mentioned that the importance of the commitment to stormwater management is going to be very important, and certainly as that relates to climate change. And we see that on a constant daily basis, even more now in the news. So this green space component is going to be very important as we move forward. So as I do encourage all of council to do and everybody on this committee to do is to take a look at that document we submitted back on July the 5th. Hopefully it gives some insights into what might help in what you're doing now. And of course, if we can be of any help to disseminate that information to our members and to the local community, we'd be very honored to do that on your behalf, to make sure that everyone is making the informed choice and understanding from a very informed position. Thank you for your time. And again, if you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Brent. Appreciate the presentation. I'll ask council if they have any questions. They look satisfied, but again, thank you for your presentation. And it looks like Alex. Welcome, Alex. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, members of council. My name is Alexandra Hoffman, and I'm speaking on behalf of Sifton Properties. We are located at 1295 Riverbend Road in London. Sifton provided a letter to the municipality with comments in regards to the municipal comprehensive review of the official plan on July 18th. As part of the statutory public meeting, I would just like to provide a brief summary of the contents of the letter for council's review and consideration. Sifton is in favor of proposed official plan policies with regards to setting intensification and affordable housing targets to promote efficient use of land and provide for an increased number of affordable housing units. We are also in support of policy additions that speak to providing for additional housing units and a greater range of permitted uses under low, medium, and high density designations. We do have concerns with a couple of policies proposed as part of the official plan with regards to the agricultural area, specifically policy 2.1.5. In that all lands designated agriculture and located outside of the existing settlement area be considered prime agricultural land, which is afforded protection under provincial policy. It is acknowledged that the draft official plan does provide opportunities for expansions to settlement boundaries outside of an MCR, subject to a set of criteria. One of those criteria being that there's no other reasonable alternatives that avoid prime agricultural land. Our concern is that if all lands designated agriculture and that are located outside of the settlement boundary are considered prime agriculture, that it's not feasible to expect that this criterion could be met, which could limit opportunity for future expansion if required to meet demand over the 25-year planning horizon. It is in our opinion that policy 2.1.5 directly contradicts those policies pertaining to expansions to the settlement boundary. With regards to the residential land needs report, it's in our opinion that the population and housing projections may be inaccurate as they were based on projections provided in the Watson and Associates report as part of the DC background study dated December 2020, which would not have factored in any 2021 census data or any Ministry of Finance data from 2020 that would have been released in 2021. It is also noted that Elgin County has not released their projections as part of their ongoing OP review. So with that, it does seem premature in our opinion to adopt population and housing projections as part of the OPA prior to receiving Elgin County projections. With consideration for Ministry of Finance data, Central Elgin could be looking at twice the amount of growth than currently projected as part of the residential land needs report. Further, we would like to note that as part of the residential land need report, it does identify vacant greenfield residential land supply in gross hectares with a 20% factor for infrastructure, roads, and parkland. That being said, we believe that this figure should be expressed in net hectares to properly communicate the developable area and potential, and that a factor of 40 to 60% for infrastructure, roads, parkland, and natural heritage features should be used based on a review of past tip to development projects. Additionally, we do believe that some of the areas that have been identified as potential opportunities for intensification may not be feasible to develop, as they'll require an extensive land assembly exercise and/or environmental remediation work. Environmental remediation work can be quite costly to private landowners, and it's our understanding that Central Elgin does not currently have incentives in place for redevelopment of contaminated or brownfield lands. So to conclude, we are requesting consideration by council to have policy 2.1.5 revised to remove the notion that all land designated agriculture and located outside of the existing settlement boundary be considered prime agricultural area, to have the residential land need report updated to consider that data from the Ministry of Finance, as well as projections to be released by Elgin County, and to express the vacant greenfield residential land supply in net hectares, as well as include a factor in the range of 40 to 60% for infrastructure, roads, parkland, and any environmental features. To revise policy 2.2A and B and 2.3.3 based on an update to the residential land need report once data from the Ministry of Finance and Elgin County has been considered. And lastly, to reconsider those intensification sites that require extensive land assembly exercise to develop and/or environmental remediation work. Thank you for your time and consideration this evening.
Thank you, Alex. Appreciate your presentation. I'd ask council if they have any questions. No, it doesn't look like. Thank you, Alex. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Jeff, welcome. The floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much. I hope I'm coming through very clearly.
We can hear you fine.
Perfect. Well, I'm here today on behalf of the Masonry Works Council of Ontario, the provincial association representing the brick, stone, and block sector in this province. We're based in Mississauga, but we are a provincial organization with representation across the province. We wanted to make some comments with respect to the design policies of the new official plan, and I think we are very pleased to see that many of them look to be in line with some of the best practices across Ontario for setting strong standards for design. We're especially happy to see this new plan establish the prospect of drafting a set of general urban design guidelines. So we would hope to encourage council to follow through on this project. We've found that communities generally find it advantageous to set a vision not just for streetscaping and zoning when they look at these design guidelines, but for general elements of the built environment, particularly talking about enduring natural materials. So our hope is that the current OP says that the municipality may undertake this project, so we hope to see that commitment followed through on, firmed up, and solidified, especially going into the new term of council. What we would also say is that we hope these guidelines would get into general preferences for preferred and discouraged building materials. There is currently no policy language in the planning framework for Central Elgin for these types of policies. So while the Planning Act does allow municipality to exercise input into matters of exterior design, this is a power that can be taken advantage of through the urban design guideline process. And I think a key part of maintaining a preferred community character is not necessarily to get into identifying specific architectural styles, because obviously you want to leave that in the eye of the beholder, but to talk about the appropriate building materials. For example, you want building materials that will be enduring, natural, and sustainable over time. Ultimately, the neighborhoods you're planning for today will still be here in 25, 50 to 100 years. You really are building tomorrow's heritage neighborhoods today with the planning documents that we're approving. And your decisions around those matters of design will determine if those communities stand the test of time. And one of the earlier speakers did mention means of maintaining community character. Urban design guidelines are a great way to do it. So that's the summation of my remarks, and I hope that as we go forward to approve these documents, the next step will be to get into a set of general urban design guidelines for the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate your presentation. We have one, Councillor Kravitz has a question.
Thank you, Jeff. Is there any specific documentation that you could forward on to the municipality in regards to the material design?
Yes, we actually have a compilation of progressive language from several municipalities that have done this, and we'd be pleased to send that on to you at our earliest convenience.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor,
Just one other thing that Councilor Kravitz talked about. Don't we have standards federally and provincially on materials that we have to follow currently? Thought we did.
The building code does set certain standards for the way building interiors have to be designed. But when we're talking about the building exterior, the Planning Act allows municipalities significant authority over matters of exterior design, including appearance, character, and design features as reflected through the site plan control process. Essentially, this means you're going beyond the minimum.
go ahead.
Just sort of a follow-up. I wasn't talking about the design. I was talking about the materials themselves. I thought we had fairly strict standards for the building materials industry.
Well, I would say that the building materials are inseparable from the design. Ultimately, the exterior building envelope is a key part of the building's design. And when you're talking about the envelope, there's strict differences in terms of the materials that you're using. For example, you have some materials that are going to weather and age quickly within 25 years, and you have others that will have extremely long lifespans of 100 years or more. And that matters not only in terms of maintaining property value, but in terms of maintaining the visual appeal of the community.
Mr. Shipway, question, comment?
No question. Through you, Deputy Mayor, Council has included the zoning bylaw review as the next step following the official plan update, which includes the urban design guidelines component as well, which this will be dealt with in that.
Thank you. All right, Jeff, again, thank you. Have a good night.
You as well.
And who do we have there? Jay McGuffin, welcome. Jay, welcome. You have the floor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and good evening to Council. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak. I am Jay McGuffin, Principal Planner with Monteith Brown Planning Consultants, and I've been retained by G. Lever Holdings, Inc. They are the owners of the Kettle Creek Golf and Country Club located at 320 Carlow Road in Port Stanley. And my client is present on the line observing the presentation this evening as well. And on behalf of our client, just like to express his objection to the proposed redesignation of his lands from residential to community facilities, and to formally request that his lands remain in the residential designation. His property is located in the serviced settlement area of Port Stanley, as you are likely aware, and is currently advancing a development application on lands that abut his property to the north. And the municipal servicing that is being considered for the adjacent development is proposed to extend through the subject lands being the golf course. And it's to tie into existing municipal infrastructure in the community. As a result of a significant decline in golf in Ontario in the past 2 decades, our client has identified a need and an opportunity to redesign his course and provide for infill lifestyle residential development on municipally serviced lands that are already inside the settlement area boundary and include a lifestyle golf course redesign. As Mr. McClure identified earlier in his previous presentation, he did mention that we had the pleasure of attending a formal pre-consultation meeting this afternoon with the county municipal staff and representatives from the Conservation Authority to advise of our client's plans, the conceptual design, the intention, as well as to hear from the county, the municipality, and the Conservation Authority on the requirements for a complete application. So again, our client is proposing a development plan to include a mix of residential development on a portion of the subject property that will include a realigned and redesigned smaller golf course. And based on our client's plans, in the context of his other development to the north and the development of Kokomo Beachlands to the south, Contrary to the recommendations in the Dillon study, there is a very real and reasonable prospect of long-term use for residential purposes on these lands, and there is a significant prospect of a change in the very near future for these lands. Preserving the residential designation of our clients' lands and redeveloping them from residential purposes would supplement the existing land supply to address housing demands and ongoing housing crisis in Ontario in an infill situation on municipally serviced property inside your settlement area boundary. I have also submitted a formal objection in writing and provided a supplementary presentation to council. That concludes my submission to council for this evening. I am available to respond to any questions that council may have. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation, Jay. I'll invite council if they have any questions. I'm not seeing any, but again, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Appreciate it.
Do we have further?
See no hands, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. If we have no further ones, I'll ask if council, do you have any questions, comments? Go ahead, Councilor Fair.
I was just wondering if these designations were changed on the golf courses as they were talking about from the residential designation, would they not have the option to go to LPAT to argue against that?
I can't answer that. Mr. McClure, can you answer that?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Marks. Through you to Councillor Fair. Yes, if we were to change the land use designations from their existing residential use to the community facility, the landowners would be able to appeal a decision. Ultimately, the council would be adopting an official plan as the approval authority is with the County of Elgin, but ultimately any decision to change the designation or any of the policies for that matter, landowners would be able to appeal that ultimate decision of the county council.
Thank you for that, Mr. McClure. Does any member of the public have any further questions? And it does not look like it. All right, in my opinion, then, the public has been given a fair opportunity to express their views regarding the proposal. Everyone, and if there are no further questions, please be advised that any person wishing further information on the actions of council regarding the passing of a bylaw on the proposed official plan should email Diane Wilson at dwilson@centralalgin.org and provide their name and address. Those who do not have access to a computer and wish to be notified should call Diane Wilson at 519-631-4860 extension 286 and provide the same information. This public meeting is now concluded. Any amendment to the official plan by law will be considered at a future meeting of council. Please note that the municipality will accept additional comments for up to 7 days, being July 27th after this public meeting. Thank you for everyone for your attendance.